What up, gamers? Today we're going to talk about Sega's upcoming reboot of the classic House of the Dead series. Yes, there is a new House of the Dead in the works by Sega. It is set to go into location testing in Japan between January the 19th and the 21st. And here's some of the images from the upcoming game. And so it's actually called House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn. And it looks pretty tried and true to the original series. This looks great. I really can't wait to see how this develops. And you can pretty much make a sure bet that, yes, it's probably going to launch first in Japan. It will eventually make its way to the North American markets. That will be good. Now, there's some really cool features about this game. We're going to get that in just a second, including this, this new arcade cabinet. And we're going to talk about that shortly. But here's some of the images from the upcoming game. Looks pretty compelling. Got some zombie chow down here. And so, you know, it's been years. It has been years since we have seen a new release to the HOD series. You know, let's face it, the last House of the Dead was the console exclusive. They came out back in 2009, and that was Overkill, and that was a console exclusive. And then before that we had House of the Dead 4. You know, well, if you think about it, man, it's 2018 now. It's been a long time since you know, Sega has actually released a game in this series, and people have even gone as far as to petition Sega to try to get them to reboot this series, which I'm really glad they did, because to be honest, this is like one of the most iconic light gun, arcade light gun shooters of all time. This is probably my favorite out of any light gun game I've ever played. This series was just amazing. I know House of the Dead 2, people loved that game. It wasn't that one. I liked it, but not as much as the original. I like the original House of the Dead the most. And this version that you're seeing here, which is House of the Dead 3, this was also one of my favorites. I did like Overkill. It kind of strayed from the original story, but it was a great game. And House of the Dead 4 was really good. And now we have House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn. And so here's the thing. Among the features of the new game, it's being built on Unreal Engine 4. Yes. It's being built in Unreal Engine 4, and it's going to have this new theater-style deluxe arcade cabinet with vibrating seats. Okay, that sounds kind of kinky. And then it's going to have motion sensors, and I'm not sure how those are going to work, and not a whole lot has really been said as of yet. In fact, the press release is in Japanese, it's not in English, so it's really hard to discern what exactly all the features are. It looks like, for now, Sega is mostly staying mum about the storyline for the upcoming Scarlet Dawn. Not a whole lot has been said there. I don't know how the characters in the new game are going to play out. You know, Agent G, Thomas Rogan, Dr. Tyrion. I don't know how, you know, are these characters going to be included? I would assume so. It would probably be the best bet to include them. And so let's take a look at some more of these pictures, some more of these images from the upcoming release. So that looks pretty wicked. Yeah, so far so good. I'm glad that they gave us some, you know, a few teasers. That arcade cabinet just looks wicked. It really looks amazing.
Stay out of my way.
And there's a few more. I'll try to go through them. The worms, the classic worms. Everybody remembers those. And so, you know, hopefully this will build off the original story. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they extend upon the original storyline, don't stray from it, you know, because that was part of what made this series so great. And let's face it, the original House of the Dead had the cheesiest in-game dialogue I have probably ever seen in an arcade, or even a video game for that matter. It was pretty bad. But it was the concept, you know, the zombie shooter, the arcade-style zombie shooter. That's what people wanted, you know. That's what they wanted. They wanted that arcade-style shooter. But here's the thing. How is this going to play out with the storyline? You can see here is Dr. Kyrian with his son Daniel. His son Daniel's sick, and he goes and creates this mutating virus, you know, and that's how we end up with this zombie apocalypse that's taking over the world, right? So this is playing off the original story, and I'm hoping that they can revamp that and bring it back. I'm really interested to see how this cabinet turns out and what exactly these motion sensors do. You know, I wish they could have, you know, clarified a little bit more about that. Not a whole lot's been said about it. Are they going to have like these bones, like you see that coin over there in the corner? You shoot those and you get bonus points. Is this going to be a really aggressive game? Is it going to be more challenging than the originals? And that was one of the things about the House of the Dead series. You could just continue and continue and continue. You know, no matter how challenging it was, you could keep shoveling in quarters. It wasn't one of those arcade games where, you know, you only had a set amount of continues, and you only continue, you know, 2 or 3 times, and the game was over. I hated that about a lot of arcade games, and I'm glad that Sega never did that to us with the House of the Dead series. You could just keep playing, so that way you could progress and get to the final battle of the game and beat it. You know, and they're going to be rescue events. That's another good question. Like you can see, we just had right here in House of the Dead 3. And what, you know, one of the things with House of the Dead 3 that really set it apart from some of the others in the series was that you're saving your, you know, the characters in the game themselves. You know, you're not saving innocents. You're actually saving the characters that are playing out in the storyline. So I don't know how that's going to work out. Whether or not they're going to have, you know, innocents in the game like the originals, like House of the Dead 1 and 2. Or are they going to have this sort of feature where you're working to save the people that play out within the storyline itself? And what are the new zombies going to look like? You know, because these guys right here, they look, you know, they look pretty unique. It looks like they've revamped the depiction of zombies a little bit differently. So it's hard to say right now. Look at this guy. The worms, that was classic. That was in every single version of House of the Dead from start to finish. That's pretty much expected. So it looks like they are trying to trace back to their roots. Although I'm kind of bummed that the Asian market gets the game first, and we're all probably going to have to wait a little while. Because, like I said, right now it's just getting ready to go into testing phase. So we really don't. It's probably going to be a while before we even see a release even in Asia. And you know how these testing phases work. They have a number of people go in and test the game and give their input on it, give their feedback, because they're looking for any problematic errors in the programming code. And, you know, they want to get the opinion of a group of people, a smaller group, kind of like a movie review, to get an idea, you know, is this game fun to play? Is this challenging? Is this something that will resonate with the wider public? Because it's very expensive to produce arcade games. You know, the hardware is not cheap, the boards are not cheap, and the type of cabinet that they're putting together, wow. That can't be, you know, that's got to cost a pretty penny as well.
Lisa, slide under it.
But I really don't think that Sega, you know, companies like Sega, I don't think that they really continue to make arcade games with the intent of making a profit. You know, in modern times, arcades are, you know, arcade games are pretty much an iconic symbol that developers and publishers use as PR. This is public relations today versus trying to make a profit, you know. Let's face it, people, you know, the average consumer can't afford to shovel in $10, you know, to play an arcade game these days. You know, people were shoveling in, you know, quarters, maybe $1 for the initial play back in the late 90s. And, you know, these cabinets probably are going to cost upwards of what? Maybe $8,000 or $10,000 to produce. And if they sell them for $15 or $20, they have distribution costs. They're probably not going to make a whole lot of money on it. So I'm assuming that this is pretty much, you know, Sega trying to stay tried and true to their roots. You know, they were an arcade developer for decades. You know, think back to the 1980s. We've covered a lot of the 1980s, 1990s Sega arcade games. Virtua Racing, Virtua Fighter, stuff like that. Outrun. It's a lot of great games that they put together over the years. It really, really is. So I don't know. It's gonna be probably a couple of months. I don't know what the results. It probably depends on what the results of the testing phase is, as to when we will actually hear of an official release date. Right now, there is no official release date for this game. It's probably going to be a while before we actually hear of one. It's possible, though, that we may end up seeing this game hit arcades in Asia maybe by the beginning of summer. That's very possible. Maybe North America towards the end of the summer, the end of the year. That would even be good. And you can make a sure bet that at some point, you know, it's probably more than likely they will end up at some point later on down the road porting this to modern consoles, because Sega always does that with their games, especially the House of the Dead series. Probably end up seeing this, you know, a couple years from now get ported to, you know, PC, PS4, Xbox One, the Switch, etc. Possibly a mobile version. There is a mobile version of House of the Dead. I think there's a couple mobile versions of House of the Dead out in the wild. I really didn't care for those that much. I prefer the actual original games. But to each to their own. So anyways, many thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest videos. And stay tuned for the upcoming House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn, because this really looks amazing. So many thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.